Today, we are turning our attention to a growing crisis in northern Saskatchewan, one that is being felt most acutely in Loche and its surrounding area. Now, it is a crisis rooted not in a single issue, but in a chain reaction. An overstretched RCMP, rising crime rates, strained local services, and a lack of basic supports needed for residents and professionals alike to live and work safely. In the community of Loche, a community of nearly 4,000 people, alongside the neighbouring Clearwater River Dene Nation with another 1,500 residents, the math simply doesn't add up. A small detachment of officers is expected to police multiple communities spread across vast distances. When 2 officers must leave the Loche detachment to respond to an emergency 40 minutes away, the community is left exposed for hours at a time, and criminals know this. What is the result? Break-ins, violence, repeat offenders cycling through a system that locals describe as catch and release. Meanwhile, RCMP officers face burnout, community trust erodes, and residents, teachers, nurses, and other essential workers are reconsidering whether they can stay. But the story doesn't end with policing. It expands into housing shortages, so severe that even when mental health therapist positions are funded, they sit vacant because there's nowhere for professionals to live. It extends into the lack of detox and addiction services. And it raises an urgent question. How do northern communities build sustainable and supportive communities when their needs are simply not there? This isn't just a public safety issue. It's a community well-being issue, a housing issue, a healthcare issue, and ultimately a northern Saskatchewan issue that requires coordinated action. Mayor Lyle Herman of Loche has been sounding the alarm for some time, both as mayor and as vice president of the Northern Caucus of SUMA, representing 35 northern municipalities across all North Saskatchewan. Now, on November 22nd of this year, Mayor Herman traveled to Ottawa to address the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm Lyle Herman, Mayor of Loche. Also, I am the First Nations band from CRDN, Clearwater River Dene Nation. Also, while here, I will be representing the North. I am the Vice President of the Northern Caucus of SUMA, which governs 35 communities in the North, which is why I'm here today. We've heard many testimonies today about the RCMP shortage, which is just a highlight on what was said earlier is that sometimes I have a population of nearly 4,000 people with a neighboring reserve, my reserve, which is a population of 1,500. Also, RCMP does go to other communities. The closest one is about 45 minutes away, which is another population of just under 2,000 residents. In regards to that, there should be a policy to have temporary coverage while recruiting more permanent officers, possibly go in effect when staffing drops to 90%. Leads to a high number of case files/officer, which leads to case not getting the attention they need, also leads to burnout. Improve accountability for repeat offenders. This catch and release program, which I have been notified doesn't seem to exist, but it seems to be there. Model is not only determinant to the community members who are being repeatedly victimized, but also as unfair as it is to those RCMP officers who are being seen as ineffectual by the community. This causes negative community sentiment towards the RCMP and more brazen illegal activity by a criminal element who no longer fear incarceration. So at one time, I was down in my community 5 officers. From what they tell me, if they have to get a call to a neighboring community, which is 40 minutes away, then if it's, there's at the same time, there's break and enter, but there's domestic violence that's happening 40 minutes away, then 2 officers have to leave the community to attend that. By the time they come back, nearly 2-3 hours have gone by, where we may have a staff of 5, but that doesn't mean they're constantly on 24/7. So the lack of policing has an effect on the crime rate going up. Access to funding to train community members to become safety officers. Having trained citizens hired to assist with maintaining public order would benefit communities across the North who are struggling with rising crime. Address the rampant drug trafficking in the North. Detox, addictions, counseling, other supports for those who need the help. There is currently very little support for those trying to move to a healthy lifestyle. I have always been a bold believer of getting to the root cause. While I had many meetings with SHA in regards to this, is one of the highlight of the issues in the North is housing. If we do not have qualified members, local qualified members to get these positions, then how can we attract outside professional when we can't house them? I told them in 2 meetings, the second meeting, I told them, you are wasting my time. If we have no housing to put them, then why am I being invited here? When I spoke to SHA officials, is that I understand there is like 12 to 15 vacancies, mental health therapists. Now, with this crisis going on, I had a teacher recently leave. I have healthcare staff, nurses, doctors who are threatening to leave because of ongoing, break and enters. I had one teacher that left about 2 weeks ago. 6 break-ins since she arrived in Loche full-time. So in closing, we need to get to the root causes, but also lack of policing causes rise in criminal activity, and these criminals know it. Thank you.
You stepped up to serve your community. Now take your leadership to the next level. Introducing GEMS, Governance Essentials for the Municipal Sector, a practical, Saskatchewan-based training program designed for council members and those who support them. Whether newly elected or a seasoned leader, GEMS helps sharpen the skills that matter most: decision-making, accountability, financial stewardship, infrastructure oversight, and navigating the complex realities of municipal governance. This isn't your typical classroom. GEMS is flexible, online, and built for busy people. You don't need a university degree, just a commitment to good governance. For some, it's been years since taking a course. That's okay. GEMS is designed to build confidence and knowledge. There is a short assessment, but it's there to reinforce your learning, not to trip you up. If cost is a concern, talk to your administrator, as there may be grants available to offset some of the costs. Because when local leaders grow, entire communities benefit. GEMS, because good governance isn't just important, it's essential.
Earlier in December, we sat down with Mayor Herman to talk one-on-one about the realities his community is facing and what solutions he believes must be on the table. Mayor, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about your most recent to Ottawa, where you were presenting in front of a House of Commons committee around First Nations and Northern policing. What brought you, the mayor of Loche, Saskatchewan, to Ottawa to do this advocacy work?
Well, our MLA is Leroy LaLiberty. I've addressed the issues to him as well, and also our MP, which is Buckley Belanger from Alacross. He is our MP for our riding. So at that concern, he put my name down for a committee, which I just thought time went by, he forgot about it or something. And then I got a phone call, this 613. And I thought, it's a scam phone call. So, excuse me. So I keep hanging up, and then they finally left a message. Oh, it's from, an office from Ottawa. So I answered it, and then they asked me to come down to address the concerns of pretty much it is a crisis right now about the lack of policing. And when I was there, I represented myself as mayor of Loche, but I also at the same time, I said that I represent SUMA as the VP of the Northern Caucus, that I represent 35 communities in the North. and that right now the lack of policing also has to do with the lack of officers. As if I remember correct, my numbers, it's 127, almost 130 officers that is well needed in the north, where I mentioned that my community at summertime, we were down to 5 officers, where we're supposed to staff on 19. But at the same time, there's another community that has no officers. We're supposed to be 7. And then I told them how that these 5 officers are not only, the population of La Loche is about 4,000. And then there's a neighboring community, CRDN, I believe, are just under 2,000. And then another community, which is Turner Lake, which is about 40-minute drive, 45-minute drive. So they answer phone calls to that. And then I explained to the government that, if there is a break and enter happening right now, and then there's a domestic violence in Turner Lake, then the 2 officers, because it has to be 2, has to go to Turner. So you have 5 communities. That doesn't mean 5 are constantly on staff. So, pretty much phone calls are starting to be triage. So it's not just a La Loche issue. It's a whole northern issue. And I guess I can speak for all of Saskatchewan and Canada that it's a crisis throughout the entire country. And a lot of times where it's, being in the north is also vast because we're all communities are stretched out throughout the province. And sometimes a phone call to a particular community might not even come right away. By the time the crime is being committed and when it's done, the officers show up an hour later. And also in terms of, I talked about housing and then I talked about the healthcare system, but also at the same time, I did mention about laws have to be strengthened or new laws have to be made. You can have 20 officers all I want. I could have 30 if I wanted to. But I spoke about certain individuals that have break and enter charges. Some of them rack up like 20, 30 charges. And I told the government, when is it enough? These individuals are causing havoc in my community and other communities. They have their own issues. But, in terms you have SGI claims, insurance claims, that's causing tens of thousands of dollars to working people, where, in right now in our an economy, it is not good for Cosford. And then I also told the government because of this issue, I have teachers leaving. I have healthcare staff threatening to leave because they don't feel safe in our communities. So these are some of the highlights that I talked about, that I told them that yes, we need more officers for more policing, but at the same time, more laws need to be strengthened. And then I didn't mention one where, there was one individual in the States, he's a veteran. And then there was 3 guys that was breaking in his home. And I forget what state it was. But anyways, after the guys broke in, one of them had a gun and the guy opened fire and he was protecting himself. That is a gray area uh, of how people want to see it. But ideally, with lack of police and policing means that people will start taking measures into their own hands to protect their homes and their families and their children. I told the government, at what point do you decide you're in danger? The person that's breaking into your home, do they have a gun? Do they have a knife? Let's say this individual is breaking into a home thinking that the home might be empty, but let's say there's someone in the house, and let's say, oh, this person saw me, are they going to kill this person? I don't know. But really, you should able to protect yourself and your families for your home. But in Canada right now, you can't do that because there are laws. It seems like there are laws protecting criminals. You should able to protect yourself, your home, your families. So, and then I told the government the same thing. I don't want to get into that, but I guess that's laws that you have to change. But I told them that I don't want to see some innocent person going to jail because they're taking matters in their own hands because we are short police officers, and when you call 911 or the local number, then a break and enter, they're not answered, they're going to phone call right away. If there's a domestic violence happening elsewhere, basically our calls are starting to be triage. So I said these are the kind of things that were a highlight of our discussion. And there were other members from across um, the provinces that talked about other issues about missing murdered Indigenous women. But primarily, these are the things that I did talk about that
So can I
my community faces.
interject for just one quick second because I want to ask this question. I feel weird asking it, but I think I have to. You've been elected as mayor for a year now, just over a year. We're
Mhm.
recording this at the beginning of December. In your short time as mayor, has things gotten worse?
You know, things were worse already, but and at the same time, it has definitely gotten worse. And to I guess to the public, it might always seem that it's because new leadership's in power. You know, I've been accused of that but they don't realize that, you know, officers are people too, and they are working with the resources that we have. And like I said, I'm down to 5 officers that's catering to 2 other communities and the smaller, I guess, settlements by the near the communities, and that to the public they don't know that. And for a long time I was a council discussion whether do we let the public know, but now that information is out now. So with lack of policing cause a lot of problems, right? You know, criminals know that police ain't gonna come right away. Because I remember this one particular store, um, it was broken into and the alarm was going off, but that doesn't mean that officers came right away. And my another neighboring community an hour away, I talked to the mayor from Buffalo, said that the local store got broken into 4 times in the course of over the summer. So um, I like to believe that sometimes a lot of it's emphasized in my community because we are a very large community. I believe we are the largest community in northern Saskatchewan. So, you know, with through social media, it has definitely gone worse, but that's also due to the lack of policing in our community because, you know, they're not seen then, but at the same time, I understand police work within what they have. You can, with the only resources that you have, right? It's just the same thing with municipalities. You know, it's always the dollars is always stretched thin. That we work with the, you know, if I had $100 million, sure, I'd like to get a lot of things done, but I don't have that kind of money. You know, everything costs money.
We
So I
are,
guess in turn that way,
go ahead.
I guess it in turns that way, you know, the lack of resources, lack of policing means crime is going to go up.
Okay, so I'm not going to burst your bubble here a little. I'm going to burst your bubble just a tad here, if you don't mind, Mayor, for a second. The federal government takes a while to do anything. Long story short, the old adage is if the federal government closes, you won't notice until probably about 6 or 7 months or even a year until after it closes. Provincial government, you may notice within a few months. Municipal government, it happens. You close down, you know, within like the day it closes down because your garbage doesn't pick up, your water doesn't turn on. Now, going to Ottawa is great. The advocacy work that you did in Ottawa, I watched your House of Commons committee hearing. It was great. You answered the questions and you answered them all into the best that you had. But the question is, when you came back, the issue wasn't solved. So, what's the next step that you, as mayor, have to do to ensure that people who do feel unsafe in the Loche don't continue to feel unsafe? Because unfortunately, unless Mark Carney wakes up tomorrow, the Prime Minister of Canada, and says, you know what, I really like that Lyle guy. I'm going to send him a bunch of RCMP officers. Nothing's going to change tonight. So, what do you see as your role as mayor to ensure locally your community feels safe?
You know, I guess, like you said, I mean, it doesn't surely take overnight for the government to do things. As locally, right now with one of my council members, we are working on community crime rule watch. So that we've been trying to get it going. The first time that we had it, the complaints that we had from my community members was that it happened during sort of like work hours. It happened like afternoon 2 o'clock. So 9 members showed up. So we're having it again this coming Tuesday on the 9th, and we're doing it in the evening. So I hope that more community members show up. We are working on other incentive programs where like having security system cameras in real time. But that is still something in the works. But so these are the kind of things that we'll have to take, you know, having security would be nice, but at the same time, it requires money to do so. I guess that's something that if the reserve could do, that'd probably be nice. But I've
Is
talked
there
about
is
earlier,
there
and I
is there a role the province needs to play in this? Is there a role that Scott Moe can, the Premier of Saskatchewan, can do tomorrow? Because I know they've been rolling out their sheriff's program, but what would you like to see the province do in the meantime as well?
yeah, the province definitely has a play into this, especially in municipalities. This is I'm gonna go off topic for a little bit. Um, since COVID happened, a lot of communities, municipal communities, their audit has been behind. But if these programs are to work for, especially financial programs, to help municipalities, then there shouldn't be restrictions on because due to their audits not up to date. Because right, a lot of communities during COVID, a lot of auditors either closed down or got smaller, these kind of things. So there is factors to it, but because of that, we were unable to ask for a lot of funding through certain programs. But I believe that the Premier of Saskatchewan is starting to recognize that there is a crisis because also Meadow Lake Tribal Council also recently the chiefs with the Meadow Lake District MLTC, their chiefs said it into, I guess they were on the news recently, saying that the crisis that we face. So I believe that, like you said, federal takes longer, provincial will have hear answers sooner. So I'm hoping that Scott Moe does hear our answers, and we've been trying to arrange a meeting with the Minister of Justice, Minister of Public Safety. So I believe that our cries are starting to be heard now. So I'm
We
hoping these
Go ahead.
So I'm hoping that through all of this, that the provincial government is hearing us. And I've also heard that, Buckley, our MP, said that, it's not just the federal that has to play a role. We have to work with provincial governments to work hand in hand to make communities safer, right? So
Since you've gone and come back from Ottawa, do you feel like you've been heard? Do you feel like the federal government heard your calls and your description of how northern communities in Saskatchewan are in a crisis when it comes to crime? I saw your clips on social media through the MPs, the Conservative member of parliaments who were in that committee meeting questioning you. I've seen comments from the Bloc. I've seen comments from the ND, the Liberals, a few of them, about what's going on. Do you feel like you've been heard?
I strongly feel I've been heard. There were some things that they were tabling there, and I do believe when I left, I felt a lot better. I believe that my voice or the Northern's voice is being heard on that table there. There wasn't just myself, but there were other representatives representing the same issues. So I believe that my voice was heard, and I think it'll come out, like I said, I strongly told them that the law needs to change about these repeat offenders. Like I said, if there are laws that already exist, it's either laws have to be changed or laws have to be strengthened. And I made it very clear so that policing and these laws have to work hand in hand. And not just only that, I felt a lot better when I came back. And recently, we've been talking to the Crown prosecutor here, not here, in the Loche. So, and they are listening, and we're gonna also have a meeting with them on Tuesday. A lot of things happening on Tuesday. I have back-to-back meetings on Tuesday.
Look at that. It's a Tuesday marathon for the mayor of Loche, Saskatchewan. So before I let you go, what's your message to mayors and northern municipalities and community members who are feeling unsure about how they can, I don't want to say protect themselves, but how they can feel safe in their own communities again? Because your voice is important. Other voices need to be standing up and saying the exact same thing that you said in Ottawa. So, what's your message to mayors, councillors, and even the average resident on the street who wants something done about this?
I think it's also, as leaders, reach out to your community. Um, Northern leaders, I would suggest as mayors, tell your community what's going on. Try to organize my community is trying to do a community crime watch. And also, if we are also in the stages of getting a town hall meeting because I can't think for everybody, right? Maybe someone has an idea that I don't know about yet. So having a town hall meeting is very ideal. I plan on that having one in the new year. That's what my community members have been saying. So I'm listening to them. So as Northern leaders, I want them to engage in tell the public what's going on. This is what we're dealing with, and this is what other communities are doing. Maybe we could try it, and again, at the same time, we also need to go back to volunteering because at some point that became non-existent. Because growing up, I used to volunteering. I mean, heaven forbid, I was a hockey coach and I had very little knowledge of hockey at that time. But the kids wanted an adult. The kids say, "Oh, we know what to do. You just have to be the adult there." And then there are times where we used to have minor sports. It used to be about other communities, and that has been lost. Is it through because of our technology? More and more, it seems like more and more youth are online these days versus outside, and I see that within my own family. It's do we need to stray away from technology? Is that way because even as parents or guardians, we cannot always monitor our children what they're on. But I always believe too much of one thing is a bad thing. So too much of social media or too much of being on the computer, being on gaming is, because they're engaged and it might be a game, but these violent things that they're seeing. So it could be that. So we need to get back to the root of, volunteering because it's civic duty is what it is, right? Trying to have programs because if we're constantly trying to find dollars, then it's always going to be an issue. We need to go back to what can we do as community members? What can we do as parents, as citizens? What can we do for our children, our youth, that we can, let's say, if there's a gym nights, evening gym nights, I know that used to be a big thing. Now in my community, that's not so much of a thing anymore. It seems like people don't want to volunteer anymore these days. Is it because life has gotten too busy? Is it because life's too expensive now? I don't know. But we need to go back to our roots to being in community engagement. So
Uh,
that's what I like to tell my northern leaders and all municipalities.
Well, Mayor Herman, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for spending. I asked for 10 minutes and you gave me 20 minutes. So thank you so much for doing that.
Oh,
Greatly
really? I
appreciate.
sort of lost track of that.
Hey, it's great. I appreciate your time and effort on this file. I will be following this story as it unfolds. So maybe in a few months' time, if there's something that changes, you and I will chat again and we'll make sure people know about it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights from today's guest. To learn more about the communities and the people that we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossbordernetwork.ca. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs shortly. Till then, everyone.